What's up, everyone? It's March 10th, 2025. In today's video, we're going to be discussing yesterday's NASCAR race at Phoenix Raceway, something called the Shriners Children's 500. And, of course, the Shriners is an organization connected to Freemasonry. On this channel, I've been talking about the connections between driver Christopher Bell and Freemasonry for almost a year now. So let's review the numerology of this race and talk about why Christopher Bell finished NASCAR's first three-peat in almost 4 years in yesterday's race. So Bell picked up the win, his third straight, and in this race we also had the NASCAR debut of Katherine Legge, who is the first woman on a NASCAR grid since Danica Patrick in 2018. Now, a few days before the race, I talked about Katherine Legge's involvement. We'll go over this at the end of the video. But one thing I pointed out is that she is wearing a hat that says Bell Helmets in the photo that they chose for Wikipedia from way back in 2018. And I thought maybe this was a clue that Bell could win his third straight. Now, I can't say I picked Bell to win 3 in a row. However, I did pick him to win his first race on February 23rd, and my videos for that are linked down below in the description. Last year, the first video I made on Christopher Bell talked about how he won a race just one day before Freemasonry turned 307 years old. 307 is an important number to Freemasonry. Freemason equals 307. And the organization is called the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, both of these with Gematria values of 307. Yesterday, Sunday, was 37 weeks after that race. So 307 years and 37 weeks after the founding of Freemasonry. Modern Freemasonry traces its lineage to the premier Grand Lodge of England, which was founded on June 24th of 1717. June 24th is also the date that pro wrestler Chris Benoit died. And this has been the big riddle that I've been following for the last few weeks. It's actually what caused me to pick Christopher Bell to win a couple weeks ago. Not only do these men share the same first name, Christopher, but Chris Bell's middle name is David, and Christopher Benoit has a son named David Benoit. But also think about the last name Bell. Every pro wrestling match begins and ends with 3 rings of the bell, typically. Ding, ding, ding. Bell, bell, bell. And here we get Christopher Bell winning 3 in a row. Ding, ding, ding. Now, yesterday's race in Phoenix was called the Shriners Children's 500. But this is not a 500-mile race. It's actually a 500-kilometer race, which means that the race is actually 312 miles, as these drivers complete 312 circuits around a 1-mile track. The number 312 was coded into Christopher Bell's age yesterday, as he was a span of exactly 30 years and 12 weeks old, 312. Now, the number 312 is a number that's important to the city of Chicago, Illinois. Not only is 312 the primary dialing code there, but the city of Chicago, Illinois also has Gematria of 312. In my preview for this race, I talked about a huge synchronicity with Chicago coming in. This was 88 weeks after the first Chicago street race at Chicago Street Course, which equals 88. Chicago, of course, on the 88th meridian. And I'll dive deep into this later once again, but the riddle went through Michael Jordan, who owns a NASCAR team. Michael Jordan had the 666 in his age for the Shriners Children's 500, which also equals 666. A race that saw the debut of Catherine Legg, whose full name also connects to the triple sixes. Michael Jordan won his final NBA championship in the year 1998. And 1998 is the third multiple of 666. However, it was not a 2311 driver who won the race, although 2311 co-owner Denny Hamlin did finish second. We see Hamlin's 11 car right here finishing just behind Christopher Bell. For this race, Hamlin was 2,311 weeks old, which matches the team name that he co-owns with Michael Jordan, 2311. We'll talk more about that number later. So how does this all connect to the Freemasonry riddle? Well, the number 2311, which syncs to Michael Jordan and team owner Denny Hamlin, this is the Gematria of Freemasonry using square numbers. Here we maintain the alphabetic order, but multiply each number by itself. And Freemasonry sums to 2311. And this is just perfect. 2311 Racing, the team owned by Jordan and Hamlin. (2311) was a number coded into the death of Christopher Benoit. Now, back in 2007, Benoit reportedly murdered his son and wife prior to killing himself. And next to those two bodies, he left a Bible. Now, in Freemasonry, the Bible that's used is the King James Version. Christopher Benoit died exactly 23,011 weeks after King James was born. On the date of yesterday's race, Chris Bell was 11,041 days old. And check out the last four digits, 1041. This is the standard gematria of Masonry, 1041. This is NASCAR's first three-peat since Kyle Larson accomplished the same feat back in 2021. Kyle completed his three-peat 1,233 days before Bell completed his. 1233 is the value of ancient and accepted Scottish Rite using Fibonacci numbers. But of course, this goes even deeper. Yesterday was 1,848 days after Christopher Bell made his NASCAR Cup Series debut. 1848 is the value of ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in Satanic. Ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry sums to 1911 in Latin. And notice how yesterday was 110,911 days after the initial founding of Freemasonry, which has the 1911. And then you look at Kyle Larson's age for yesterday, and he has the 1191 in his age. Again, Larson, the last driver to complete a three-peat in the sport before Christopher Bell. But check this out. If you run the gematria of the name Freemasonry using capital letters, it sums to 277, which is the same value as the name Christopher. In fact, Chris Bell also equals 277 in standard. Chris Bell was born 277 years after the founding of Freemasonry, the number that his gematria shares with the organization. Bell's birthday is 175 days after Masonry's founding date. And yesterday, he wrapped up his three-peat in the city of Phoenix, Arizona, which equals 175 ordinal. June 24th, which is Freemasonry's founding date, is the 175th day of the year. And again, that's the same day that Chris and Nancy Benoit were found dead in their home, the 175th day. Using the reverse alphabetic order, Chris Benoit and Nancy Benoit, both 175 reverse. So again, a riddle I picked up on first last year. Chris Benoit. The reason I pointed this out is because WWE Raw visited Corpus Christi, Texas a week before this. And Corpus Christi, which means body of Christ, is where the WWE filmed their tribute episode of Raw to Chris Benoit the night after he died. WWE also debuted a new wrestler, Jacob Fatu, that week, who was all synced up to Benoit. Now, the city of Phoenix sits on the 33rd northern parallel from the equator. The abbreviation for the city, PHX, equals 33 in reverse. And of course, this isn't a significant number to Masonry, which equals 33. It's believed that the 33rd degree is the highest in Masonry. In the reverse order, Masonry equals 84. Chris Benoit's home in Fayetteville, Georgia, was on the 33rd northern parallel and the 84th western meridian. So Christopher Bell completing his three-peat along the same coordinates as Benoit's death, the 33rd parallel. Bell's feat was also accomplished in Arizona, which equals 84 like Masonry. So, of course, Freemasonry is obsessed with the Eclipse Code. And indeed, the Eclipse Code is relevant here in this story as well. When Christopher Bell got his first ever NASCAR win, it was at Daytona's road course. The year prior, he made his Cup Series debut at the Daytona 500. So Daytona, Florida, is an important city to Christopher Bell. This is because the city has Gematria of 1216 in standard. Christopher Bell was born on December 16th, or 1216. When you write out the date December 16th, it sums to 1331 in standard Gematria. Now this stands out because the name Bell equals 13 and 31. Those of you familiar with my work know that 1331 is the ultimate solar eclipse number. Since nearly the beginning of my channel, I've been talking about this number connected to eclipses. It's truly fascinating. I encourage you to check that out. When you write out total solar eclipse in that same standard cipher, it equals 994, and Bell was born in the year 1994. Now, the name Freemasonry sums to 139, 158, 67, and 59. Last year, Christopher Bell won a race in New Hampshire the day before Masonry's anniversary. And notice how New Hampshire and Christopher both have those same 4 numbers. Even Chris Benoit has the 67 and 59. But the 67 is what really stands out. The name Bell equals 67, just like Phoenix Raceway. Total solar eclipse, also 67. Now, you may recall that last year, on April 8th, we had a total solar eclipse that passed over the United States. And rather appropriately, this eclipse belonged to Saros Series 139. which is a number shared with New Hampshire, Christopher, and Freemasonry. Well, measuring from the date of that eclipse to the date of yesterday's race was a span of exactly 48 weeks. The name Christopher David Bell has this 48 using capital letters, 408. But also think about how the race was in Phoenix, whose abbreviation has the 48 in the alphabetic order. In fact, the state of Arizona was the 48th state admitted to the Union. So yesterday's race was 521 days before the next total solar eclipse. The race was also 5 years and 21 days after Bell's Cup Series debut. 521, of course, a number connected to the Beast. This was actually a number I mentioned in my race preview, because check out Tyler Reddick's age for the race. Tyler Reddick usually drives the Beast car, and the Beast equals 521. He would have been, or he was 1,521 weeks old. However, Reddick ran a different livery yesterday, so he was not in the Beast car. Maybe this was telling us that the Beast riddle really goes through Christopher Bell. Well, anyway, 521, or May 21st, is the birthday of Chris Benoit. 521. Now, the reason 521 stands out to me sometimes is because May 21st is also the date that Alphonso Taft died. Now, wait a minute. Who the hell is Alphonso Taft, you ask? Well, along with classmate William Huntington Russell, Alphonso Taft is one of the two founders of the Skull and Bone Society, which is a code I discuss quite frequently, I guess you could say, on this channel. Now, this means Chris Benoit was born exactly 76 years after the death of Alphonso Taft. And this is perfect because skull and bones equals 76. The last president we had to be part of the Skull and Bones Society is George W. Bush, who was even born in New Haven, Connecticut, where Yale is located. And check out George Bush's birthday, 7/6. Bush also defeated another Skull and Bones member, John Kerry, in the 2004 election. But George Bush has this 7/6 birthday, 7/6 of 46. And on his 76th birthday, we had the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones. Georgia, like George Bush. When Christopher Bell won his first of 3 races on February 23rd, or 223, an important number to the Skull and Crossbones, he won that race in the state of Georgia, near Atlanta. And of course, Georgia is where Christopher Benoit died. Fayetteville, Georgia. And just think about it. Georgia, the letter G. Georgia is the only state out of the 50 in America that begins with the letter G. So, 76 years between the death of Taft and the birth of Benoit. Skull and Bones and Christopher both equal 76. Well, Secret Society equals 76 and 940. And 76 years is also exactly 940 lunar phases. So how perfect Freemasonry, probably the world's most popular secret society. Skull and Bones, perhaps the most nefarious of the secret societies, at least in name. And when we talk about 76 years, this is actually a significant period of time in relation to the moon. This brings us to the Eclipse cycle, which is a period of just about exactly 76 years, or 4 Metonic cycles. The Eclipse cycle was first calculated in 330 BC. So here again we have a 33, but look at this. Christopher David Bell sums to 330 in reverse gematria. Remember, Chris Benoit's wife, Nancy Elizabeth Benoit, also had the 330. Christopher Bell was born 330 months after Chris Benoit. Appropriately, their birthdays are also separated by 210 days, which matches the ordinal value of Bell's full name and Nancy's. 210 also matches Chris and Moon in standard gematria. Now, the Eclipse cycle is credited to an astronomer named Calipus, or Calippus, for the pedantics out there. But when I see this name Calippic, I always think of Calypso from Greek mythology. And this is a female nymph god from Homer's Odyssey. And it just makes me wonder if this is part of the riddle connected to Catherine Legg driving in this race, the first female in almost 7 years to drive a Cup Series car in NASCAR. When you take the gematria of the goddess Calypso, look at this, it equals 624. This reminds us of June 24th, the founding date of Masonry, and the date Chris Benoit died. Catherine Legg is 5,270 days older than Chris Bell, and that connects to Skull and Bones, 527. So I just want to talk about some of the synchronicity here before I wrap this video up. Once again, the race was in Phoenix. And not that long ago, I made a video about Phoenix. So as the wrestling company, again, we're still talking about pro wrestling here, All Elite Wrestling, or AEW, owned by Tony Khan, ran a show in Phoenix a few weeks ago on February 19th, and at that show, they taped an episode of AEW Collision. Well, on that same exact day, February 19th, we had an airplane collision at an airport near Phoenix. So when I saw that NASCAR was going racing in Phoenix, I figured there was probably a connection. Now, last night, the same day as the race, AEW held one of their main pay-per-view events, Revolution. And the main event of Revolution last night featured Jon Moxley defending his championship against a wrestler named Edge, or Adam Copeland. And Adam Copeland is married to WWE Hall of Famer Beth Phoenix. And Beth Phoenix, her nickname, the Glamazon, sums to 127 like her real name, Beth Kochansky. And 127 is also the value of the female who entered the race, Catherine Legg, 127. Edge went up against a champion whose birthday is 12/7, Jon Moxley. And the big connection here is that Catherine Legg, her last name is literally Legg, that's how it's pronounced. Well, Edge broke his leg jumping from the top of a cage. And he just recently came back from this injury. You can kind of see it here. He lands bad on his leg and breaks it. And this is the guy who came back and fought for the title on the same day that Catherine Legg made her debut. And you have to appreciate this. First of all, Jon Moxley, he was born 44 years after Pearl Harbor Day exactly. The name leg equals 44. And a broken leg equals 44. And not only was Catherine Legg 44 years old, but her debut was also 4 months and 4 days before her next birthday. Now, I'll admit, a lot of these numbers pointed me to a potential win for Tyler Reddick. That was my number one pick. So I'm only 1 for 4 this year, not doing so hot on NASCAR yet, but I think we're getting there. I don't know. It's a tough sport to predict. You know, there's 40 drivers, and most of them have a chance to win on any given day. So, definitely some progress to be made. But what really stuck out to me about this synchronicity with the race in Phoenix and Beth Phoenix, her husband wrestling for the title. Look at Beth Phoenix's age for the race. She was exactly 2,311 weeks old. And she was born just 6 days before 2311 team owner Denny Hamlin, who was also 2,311 weeks old. There's a lot more to unpack with the Michael Jordan riddle, but some of this is moot given that Reddick did not win yesterday. Reddick, one of Jordan's 3 drivers on the grid. However, there is a connection with Michael Jordan to Christopher Bell that I want to show you because, you know, even though I didn't get the prediction right, I mentioned Bell in the post, and he is connected through the 666 code. Michael Jordan was 1,660 weeks and 6 days old when Christopher Bell was born, but more importantly, I think, is that this is also 31 years and 10 months. Like the number 311. The Beast equals 311, in addition to the 521 that we discussed earlier. The name of the track, Phoenix Raceway, equals 211. Yesterday was exactly 211 weeks after Christopher Bell's first ever Cup win. This is the 47th prime number, and the name Bell equals 47. And then one more thing I want to mention before I wrap this video up. And again, numerology is, to me, the most fascinating thing in the world, and I don't think anything will ever top it. And the reason I say that is because of how strongly this code often connects to my own personal life. Now, towards the end of my video on Gene Hackman, I went off a little bit talking about the synchronicity with my cousin. Back in 2004, I had a cousin who was 2 months older than me who passed away from a series of strokes. And the day after he suffered his first stroke, while he was attending Valparaiso University, WWE visited Valparaiso and held a show there. And in this video, I linked this down below in the description. You can check this out for yourself. The death of my cousin, who starred as a host of a Christian kids show for the Wisconsin Lutheran Synod, his death was completely connected to the Skull and Bones Code. And in fact, he died on the same day that The Passion of the Christ was released. And my cousin Chris, he went to state championships as a wrestler in high school. And his death is super synced to WWE. They even built a library at Valparaiso that looks just like a Hell in a Cell. Not long after he died. See this library here? It looks like a Hell in a Cell. So the whole Christopher Benoit thing is very personal to me because this connects directly to someone who died in my personal life. Now, the reason I bring that up for the sake of this video is because check out the lunation number right now. About a week and a half ago, we entered Brown lunation number 1,264. 264. Now, this stood out because yesterday's race was exactly 264 weeks after Bell's first ever Cup race at the Daytona 500. Now, what's kind of creepy about this to me is how this connects to my cousin, Christopher J. Gadzinski. In the alphabetic order, my cousin's name sums to 264. Notice how his name also sums to 330, which matches Christopher David Bell. But check this out. This is where it just gets weird. Now, my cousin Chris was my mom's twin's son. So my mom and his mom were born on the same day, July 23rd of 53. And measuring from that date to the birth of my cousin Christopher J. Gadzinski, Chris was born 264 days after his mother's birthday. However, if you run the age from his death back to his mom's birthday, it's a span of exactly 2,640 weeks. So my mom and his mom both had the 264 in their age for his birth and death. It's also 18,480 days. And I mentioned 1848 earlier in this video. Bell's 12 wins are now 1,848 days apart, matching Freemasonry. There was something else I was going to mention with this, but it slipped my mind. So yeah, I mean, this just got me thinking, like, how synced is my cousin Chris to this Christopher Bell character? And this tripped me out too. They were born exactly 505 weeks apart. And just yesterday, I did a video on Irfan Khan and Andre Dawson, and notice how they were born exactly 505 weeks apart, which I mentioned in that video. So I don't know. Maybe I'm losing my mind a little bit the deeper I go into this, but it's just wild. And then look at this. So the last two NASCAR drivers to complete a three-peat were born 124 weeks apart. And that's similar to my cousin Chris's birthday, born on the 12th of April, or 12/4. I thought there might have been another 124, but I think you guys get the point. Again, if you want to see this video, it's one of the craziest decodes you'll ever see. It's linked down in the description below. In fact, I have a whole organic matrix playlist on my channel. So to find that, just go in there, go to playlists, and check out Gematrinator's Organic Matrix, where I talk about how this symbolic language of astrology, numerology, all connects to our personal lives. You know, like this video here is about the fact that I literally drove through the end of a rainbow the first time I ever went to teach numerology in person. And the mile marker right here on the road matches the Gematria of rainbow. The city I was in matches the Gematria of rainbow. The verses in the Bible that mention a rainbow matches the date that this happened to me. Guys, we live in a magical matrix. And no matter how many Freemasons are pulling strings, it'll never compare to what the Creator has already constructed for us. So with that, that's going to wrap this video up. Once again, please check the links in the description below if you'd like to support the work and the website to help keep us running. There's memberships and even a PayPal link down below as well. Thanks to everybody for watching. Much love, all the blessings in the world to you all. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.